joined by the head coach of the Nets, Avery Johnson. Big smile on his face throughout that news conference because he's got one of the biggest weapons in the NBA now running the show, and Deron Williams. Avery, you hear the news from Billy King that the Nets are involved in these trade talks. What's your reaction when you first hear that Deron, there's a possibility, and then your reaction when the news comes down, it's official, you're going to be coaching Deron Williams?
Well, it was exciting. When Billy first told me initially about how he was engaged with Utah, I couldn't really believe it. But I was excited to hear the news, and I think I just stayed in his office and lived in there until the deal was final because I just didn't want to believe I was dreaming. So, again, we're excited about Deron. He's a phenomenal talent. He can do so many things on the court. You know, he's not going to be a savior for our franchise and put us on a championship level or anything like that right now, but he gets us closer down the road of hopefully becoming a playoff team. He makes us more relevant than we were. So that's what we're excited about.
Avery, when you're building a team, right, from a coaching standpoint and a GM standpoint, now you have a point guard that's arguably, depending on what day of the week you look at it, top 3, top 5 in the league, right? Who knows? And who cares, really? Yeah. Do you think this job now becomes a little bit easier? Everything's tough, but a little bit easier now that you have a point guard and a Brook Lopez at the same time, but the focus on the point guard, obviously.
Well, I don't think anything about being a head coach is easy, all right, because there's so many different hats we have to wear. Right. But I think there are certain situations in the game where I'm going to be a little bit more comfortable with Deron running the show because of his experience and with him being such an elite point guard. Maybe I can focus on some other areas because we still have a team, Jim, that we have to grow in a lot of other positions. But again, I think for Brook Lopez, Deron Williams is going to be great for him. Maybe get him a few more easy baskets. But for me, I don't think anything about what we do is easy. Right. But there will be certain things on the floor or within the confines of the game that Deron will be able to take a little bit more control over. And that's like what I was saying, my good friends Greg Popovich of the Spurs and Doc Rivers, they have guys like that provide that type of flexibility.
Well, if I'm Morrow or I'm Sasha right now, I'll tell you one thing. I'm very happy that I have this guy who's averaging 10 assists a game. Yeah,
and again, and this is what I tell people. When you're averaging 10 assists, that means the people or teammates that he's passing the ball to, the ball's got to go in the basket. Absolutely. So, we've had an issue of making wide open shots here in the past. We got to make our wide open shots. That's what an assist are about because that's what he's going to get, guys.
What has your interaction been like with Deron Williams over the past few years?
We've crossed paths in Dallas when he would come over to our facility and work out with the guys, and it's always been positive. And that's what I expected to be positive. He wants to be coach. Tim Duncan is one of the greatest power forwards in the league. He allows Coach Popovich to coach him. But at the same time, whatever his relationship was with Coach Sloan, that's in the past. We're going to build our own chemistry. I'm excited about working with him. And, again, I think sky's the limit.
You also know from your San Antonio days, a championship team, that the best players on that team were also considered among the hardest workers, that there is a cause and effect. With Deron, are you getting a player that is known for his work ethic and known for setting the bar high for the rest of his teammates to follow?
Absolutely, and that's why they've had that consistent success in Utah since he's been there. Deron, he's a man of strong character and integrity. He has a presence about him, even when he walks in the room. When he steps on the floor and gets called out for the starting lineup, he has a certain presence and a swagger about him, and that's what we're excited about.
When you took this job, you said you had a vision of big things happening with this organization. It's clear in this league now. You have to have stars. You've got to have a certain talent level in order to be successful. Do you believe that this is truly now starting to form the way that you saw it forming when you took the head coaching position? Yeah, guys, when we took over, we had, a lot of empty boxes, okay? Now we can put a check mark, by this situation. We knew, down the road, we were going to have this type of player at that position. And that's no knock on Devin Harris. Devin Harris was terrific for us here, and I've had a
the luxury of coaching him 2 times. But again, this is a different situation. So now we can put a check here. When Brooke continues to grow, then we'll be able to put a check at that position, at our 2, 3, and 4 position. And in the bench, we still have issues that we have to address, and that we have empty boxes that we want to put a check mark by. So again, Billy and I knew when we came here it was going to be a process. It still is. We haven't arrived yet, but this inches us closer to becoming a better team.
And at the same time, Avery, I would just be curious from your thoughts on the fact that having a guy like Williams on your team, a guy who can go fast, a guy who can go half-court sets, basically play any way you want him to, when you start building whatever it's going to be in the future, at least you know you can really be selective to a degree, and maybe not so selective if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be able to play at different speeds. Yeah. We know in the playoffs the game slows down no matter how fast you play in the regular season. If you look at our game last week before the All-Star break against Boston, we're pretty much in that game the whole night, except for our start when I called probably the fastest 20 in the history of sports.
I had to tell him it was a timeout. He didn't know what was going on.
But again, we were in that game until the 5-minute mark. Boston turns up their defense a little bit. We don't score the rest of the evening. And I know Boston, they do that to a lot of people. Right. We think, with Deron, we'll be able to still have a chance in some of those situations, and that's all you can hope for.
Avery, good luck. You got a business trip. You got places to be.